Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a kind and gentle girl named Cinderella. She lived with her cruel stepmother and her two mean stepsisters, who made her work from morning till night. While they wore fancy dresses and went to parties, Cinderella wore rags and spent her days cleaning, cooking, and dreaming of a better life. One day, the king of the kingdom announced a grand ball at the palace. Every girl in the land was invited because the prince was looking for bride. Cinderella's stepsisters were thrilled and spent days preparing their gowns and hairstyles. "Can I go to the ball too?" Cinderella asked shyly. "You? Go to the ball?" Laughed her stepsisters. "You have nothing to wear." Her stepmother added, "Stay home and clean the house. You don't belong at the palace." Cinderella felt her heart sink, but she didn't argue. Once her stepmother and stepsisters left for the ball, she sat by the fireplace, feeling lonely and sad. Suddenly, a warm light filled the room, and a kind old woman appeared. She held a sparkling wand and smiled. "Don't cry, dear Cinderella," the woman said. "I am your fairy godmother, and you shall go to the ball." With a wave of her wand, magic filled the air. Her ragged dress transformed into a beautiful ball gown, shimmering with jewels. On her feet appeared glass slippers, delicate and dazzling. "But how will I get to the ball?" Cinderella asked. Her fairy godmother waved her wand again, and a pumpkin from the garden turned into a golden carriage. 6 mice became horses, and a little rat turned into a coachman. "Remember, my dear," the fairy godmother said, "the magic will only last until midnight. You must leave the ball before the clock strikes 12. Cinderella thanked her fairy godmother and rode off to the palace. When she entered the grand ballroom, everyone turned to look at her. She was so beautiful that even her stepsisters didn't recognize her. The prince was enchanted by Cinderella and asked her to dance. They twirled and laughed, and Cinderella felt like she was in a dream. The hours flew by, and Cinderella didn't notice the time until the clock began to chime. Dong, dong, dong. "Oh no!" she cried, running out of the ballroom. She raced down the palace steps but accidentally left one of her glass slippers behind. The prince called after her, "Wait. I don't even know your name." But Cinderella had already disappeared. The next day, the prince declared he would marry the girl whose foot fit the glass slipper. He traveled to every house in the kingdom. When he arrived at Cinderella's home, her stepsisters tried to squeeze their feet into the slipper, but it didn't fit. Finally, "May I try?" Cinderella asked softly. Her stepsisters laughed, but when she slipped her foot into the glass slipper, it fit perfectly. The prince recognized her immediately and said, "You're the one I've been looking for." Cinderella and the prince were married soon after, and she invited her stepmother and stepsisters to live peacefully in the palace. But from then on, Cinderella was no longer a servant. She was a kind and beloved queen, living happily ever after.